A man sits with the weight of his legacy pressed against the silence. This ain't just another case. This is a reckoning, the people versus power. And today, power finally had to sit down. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs stood above it all, untouchable, unbothered, unstoppable. But now he sits inside the same system he once danced around. The cameras ain't flashing, the champagne's gone flat, and the only music playing is the sound of truth knocking at the door. This is more than rap, more than business. This is about control, fear, silence, trauma wrapped in tuxedos and NDAs. And for the first time, power is on trial. So sit tight, because what's about to unfold ain't a fairy tale. It's a firestorm. The people versus power begins now. He walked into that courtroom with no entourage, no chains, no flash, just a quiet presence and a heavy truth. The name is Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi. The world knows the music, but today the court heard the man, calm, collected, unshaken. He sat down and told a story not meant for albums or headlines. A story soaked in silence, fear, and fire. Years ago, Scott had a quiet personal relationship with Cassie. Not for attention, not for fame, just peace. Something rare in an industry built on chaos. But that peace came with a cost. Because when Sean Combs found out, he didn't ask questions. He made threats. And not long after that threat, Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi's Porsche was bombed. A Molotov cocktail, flames bursting through glass. A luxury car turned to ash. A message written in smoke. There was no misunderstanding. No confusion. That fire was the answer to one question. Who gave Cassie peace when he couldn't control her anymore? And in that courtroom, Scott didn't flinch. He looked the truth in the eye and said, "I believe Sean Combs was behind the fire. That's not drama. That's not a diss. That's testimony. And when a man like that, calm, private, respected, chooses to speak, you don't ignore it. You listen. Because in a room full of lawyers, press, and power, Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi spoke louder than them all. Not with a mic, not with a beat, but with something the industry forgot how to hold: accountability. The flames didn't start in the streets. They started in the heart of a man who felt his control slipping. And when Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi found peace with Cassie, Sean Combs didn't say a word. He sent a warning. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't an argument. It was a Molotov cocktail. That Porsche, one of Scott's most prized possessions, set on fire and left to burn under the silence of night. The message was loud. Stay away from what I claim. No apology. No denial. Just ash where there used to be movement. Just smoke where there used to be peace. In that courtroom, Scott Ramon Seguro Mescudi made it plain. I believe Sean Combs was behind it. And for the first time, that silent act of intimidation was dragged into the light. No longer a secret. No longer untouchable. Just fire. Now part of the record. When Cassie's mother took the stand, the courtroom didn't shift. It froze. Because what she brought wasn't rumor, it was proof. She told them about the late-night emails, how her daughter would write in fear, telling her that Sean Combs had tapes, that he threatened to show the world what he'd done to her, that he would ruin her if she ever walked away. And the fear wasn't just in the threats, it was in the control. She said Cassie told her, "I can't leave the hotel," and that wasn't drama, that was confinement. Then the assistant came forward, and his testimony made the fear even more real. He said he had to stock hotel rooms, not for comfort but for control. Fiji water, Jell-O, condoms, underwear, all billed to the bad boy account. But the real violations? Those didn't have receipts. He said when it came to the Astroglide and the freak-off prep, it was paid for in cash. No paper trail, no record. No accountability, just silence. Bought and protected, and when he went to deliver food to Cassie, she didn't even answer the door. An executive from Combs' team did. That's when it hit the courtroom like a brick. She wasn't living. She was being managed. Between the mother's fear and the assistant's facts, a picture came into focus. A silent empire built on submission and silence. This ain't just about music. This is about power, pain, and the people who were forced to protect it until they couldn't anymore. And now, the empire's secrets are out. And the people? They're finally speaking. Back straight, jaw locked, eyes empty. Sean Puff Daddy Combs. No emotion, no reaction. just absorbing everything around him like a sponge soaked in secrets. The courtroom is full of noise, testimony, evidence, pain put into words. But he remains still. Because when you've been protected for decades, silence becomes your armor. That stillness isn't confidence. It's habit. The look of a man who's watched bodies fall in his name and never had to pick up a single piece. One woman said he made her feel like a prisoner. Another said he threatened to show tapes to keep her quiet. They weren't reading scripts. They were reliving trauma. And he didn't blink. His own assistant painted the picture. Fake aliases, freak-off kits, cash-only transactions designed to hide the dirt beneath the glitz. And still Diddy sat, as if the room was talking about a stranger, as if the name they kept repeating wasn't his. But make no mistake, he heard it all. That jaw twitch? That foot tapping beneath the table? That blank stare? That's not composure. That's containment. He ain't new to this. He's survived whispers. He's paid for silence. He's danced around destruction for decades. But this ain't a concert. This is court. And every new testimony? Another crack in the illusion. He ain't testifying. But his posture says everything. The world is watching. And for once, he can't spin the narrative. Because the silence he mastered to control the world is now the loudest thing in the room. And then, it wasn't just the witnesses or the lawyers in the room anymore. It was the bloodline. Diddy's kids were there, sitting just rows away from the man they grew up calling a king, watching as prosecutors peeled back the image, layer by layer, until nothing was left but raw, unfiltered allegations. And when the words came out, threats, violence, tapes, control, you could hear it. A gasp. Not from the public. From his own kids. That was the moment the courtroom cracked. Not from evidence, but from emotion. The look in their eyes said it all. Is this really the man who raised us? Every photo, every birthday, every proud post online, now competing with testimony about rooms locked, threats whispered, and lives broken behind hotel doors. It wasn't just a father on trial. It was a legacy unraveling in real time. And no matter how quiet he sat, he felt that shift. Because there's no silence louder than when your children look at you different. That gasp? It wasn't just surprise. It was a goodbye to the image they thought they knew. The courtroom was full, but suddenly it felt small, like the walls were closing in on a legacy built on fear. Sean Combs sat alone, his name echoing through testimony. Not as a mogul, not as a legend, but as a man cornered by truth. The prosecution laid it out clean. The threats, the control, the manipulation disguised as mentorship. The women, the assistants, the aliases, the tapes. Every witness chipped away at the brand until there was nothing left but the blueprint of abuse. And while the defense shuffled paper and his team avoided eye contact, the jury saw it. All of it. Not just what was said, but what wasn't. The silence, the stillness, the man with everything to say, who chose to say nothing. And that silence, it was louder than any denial. Because at some point you stop asking if it's true, and you start asking, how did he keep it hidden this long? The empire's collapsing. The stories are lining up. And the people? They're not afraid anymore. This ain't just the end of an era. This is the moment the music stopped. And the truth stood up. For years, the money spoke louder than the victims. The fame covered the scars. The silence was the only thing louder than the truth. But not anymore. This courtroom didn't just hold a trial. It held an empire accountable. Because no matter how high you rise, no matter how many records you sell, no matter how many people you pay to forget, the truth always waits. And when it finally speaks, power doesn't protect you forever. The silence is over.